Discernment, in a biblical context, is the ability to judge well, especially in spiritual matters. It involves distinguishing between what is true and false, right and wrong, and making decisions that align with God's will. Discernment is not merely about making choices, it's about making the right choices that reflect God's wisdom and righteousness. In the Bible, discernment is often linked with wisdom and understanding. It's a gift that enables believers to navigate life's complexities with clarity and spiritual insight. The Scriptures encourage us to seek discernment actively, as it helps us recognize God's voice amidst the noise of the world and avoid the traps of deception and sin. For a believer, discernment is essential because it strengthens our relationship with God and helps us live a life that honors Him. It guides us in our daily decisions, relationships, and spiritual growth, ensuring that we remain on the path of righteousness. Without discernment, we are vulnerable to making choices that may lead us away from God's plan and purpose for our lives. Before we begin, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel so you never miss one of our uploads on Bible verses. The first Bible verse you need to know about discernment is James 1:5, which says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you." This verse encourages believers to turn to God for wisdom whenever they feel uncertain or confused. It highlights God's willingness to provide guidance and clarity to those who earnestly seek it, demonstrating His generosity and desire for us to walk in wisdom. In the context of discernment, this verse is a foundational reminder that true wisdom comes from God. Discernment requires wisdom to distinguish between what is right and wrong, to see through deception, and to make decisions that align with God's will. By asking God for wisdom, we invite His perspective into our lives, allowing us to see situations and choices through the lens of His truth. Seeking wisdom from God is directly related to discernment because it acknowledges our need for divine guidance. When we rely on God's wisdom rather than our own understanding, we are better equipped to discern His will and navigate life's challenges with spiritual insight. This verse assures us that God is eager to provide the wisdom we need, reinforcing the importance of prayer and dependence on Him in our journey of faith. The next Bible verse you should know is Hebrews 5:14, which says, "But solid food is for the mature, who by constant use have trained themselves to distinguish good from evil." This verse contrasts spiritual immaturity with maturity, emphasizing that discernment is a sign of spiritual growth. The solid food represents deeper, more substantial teachings that mature believers can handle because they have developed the ability to discern between good and evil through consistent practice and application of God's Word. The context of this verse highlights the importance of moving beyond elementary teachings and growing in spiritual understanding. Discernment is not something that comes automatically, but is cultivated through continual exposure to God's truth and the disciplined practice of applying that truth in daily life. Spiritual maturity involves being able to recognize subtle differences between what is godly and what is not, enabling believers to make decisions that align with God's will. Spiritual maturity plays a crucial role in discernment because it equips believers with the experience and understanding needed to make wise choices. As we grow in our relationship with God and deepen our knowledge of His Word, our ability to discern becomes sharper. Mature believers are those who have trained themselves through consistent practice to see clearly the moral and spiritual implications of their choices, ensuring they live in a way that honors God. The third Bible verse about discernment is Philippians 1:9-10, which says, "And this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ." In these verses, Paul prays for the believers in Philippi, asking that their love would grow, not just in emotion, but in knowledge and deep insight. This growth in love and understanding is directly linked to the ability to discern what is best and to live in a way that pleases God. The context of this passage underscores the connection between love, knowledge, and discernment. Paul recognizes that true discernment is rooted in a deep, informed love, love that is not blind, but enlightened by an understanding of God's truth. As our love for God and others grows in wisdom and insight, our capacity to discern increases. We become better equipped to distinguish not just between good and bad, but between what is good and what is best in God's eyes. Understanding discernment through the lens of love and knowledge is vital because it shows that discernment is not merely about making correct choices, but about making choices that reflect a deep, informed love for God and others. When our decisions are guided by a love that is rich in knowledge and insight, we are more likely to discern God's will accurately and live lives that are pure and blameless before Him. Bible verse number 4 is 1 John 4, one which says, "Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world." This verse serves as a warning to believers to be cautious and discerning about what they accept as truth. John urges the early Christians to test the spirits, meaning they should critically evaluate teachings and influences to determine whether they align with God's truth or come from deceptive sources. The context of this verse is set in a time when false teachings and prophets were a significant threat to the early church. John emphasizes the need for discernment to protect the community from spiritual deception. Testing the spirits involves comparing teachings and influences against the truth of God's Word and the character of Christ. This practice helps believers avoid being led astray by false doctrines or misleading spiritual experiences. The importance of testing spirits to discern truth is crucial for believers today, just as it was in the early church. Discernment is not about skepticism for its own sake, but about ensuring that our faith is anchored in genuine truth. By testing the spirits, we safeguard our spiritual lives and the integrity of the Christian community, ensuring that we follow teachings that truly reflect God's will and character. Our final Bible verse that you need to know is Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." These verses are a powerful reminder of the importance of relying on God, rather than solely on our own understanding. They encourage believers to place their full trust in God, knowing that He sees and knows more than we ever could. When we submit our ways to Him, He guides us along the right path. The context of this passage highlights the contrast between human understanding and divine wisdom. The writer of Proverbs urges us to acknowledge our limitations and instead depend on God's infinite knowledge and love. This trust is not passive. It requires active submission to God's will, allowing Him to direct our decisions and paths. It's a call to humility and faith, recognizing that God's guidance is far superior to our own reasoning. Trusting in the Lord and not leaning on our own understanding is essential for true discernment. When we rely on God, we gain access to His perfect wisdom, which helps us navigate life's complexities with clarity and confidence. By submitting to Him in all areas of our lives, we ensure that our decisions are aligned with His will, leading to a life that is both fulfilling and in harmony with God's plan. Applying these verses in daily life involves actively seeking God's wisdom and guidance in every decision we make. Start by making prayer a central part of your routine, asking God for discernment in both big and small matters. As James 1:5 encourages, approach God with confidence, knowing that He is eager to provide the wisdom you need. Cultivate spiritual maturity by consistently engaging with God's Word, as Hebrews 5:14 suggests. Regularly reading and meditating on the Bible helps you develop the ability to discern between right and wrong and equips you to make decisions that honor God. Surround yourself with a community of believers who can offer godly counsel and support, helping you to stay grounded in truth. Finally, trust in God's guidance over your own understanding, as Proverbs 3:5-6 advises. When faced with uncertainty, lean into God's wisdom rather than relying solely on your own reasoning. Submit your plans and decisions to Him, trusting that He will lead you on the right path. By making discernment a daily practice, you can navigate life with confidence, knowing that your choices align with God's will. Discernment is an essential skill for every believer, allowing us to navigate life's complexities with wisdom and clarity. As we've seen in these verses, discernment is rooted in seeking God's guidance, growing in spiritual maturity, and trusting in His wisdom over our own understanding. By developing discernment, we align our decisions with God's will, leading to a life that honors Him. In today's world, where conflicting messages and deceptive influences are common, the ability to discern truth from falsehood is more important than ever. These scriptures remind us that God is eager to provide us with the wisdom we need, but we must be intentional in seeking it. Make it a priority to pray for discernment, study God's Word, and trust Him fully in all your decisions. As you go forward, I encourage you to apply these principles in your daily life. Seek God's wisdom in everything you do, and let discernment guide your choices. By doing so, you will not only make decisions that honor God, but you will also experience the peace and direction that come from walking in His truth.